Good afternoon and welcome back again for another session. And this time around, we want to move to our chapter 2. And in this chapter 2, what we are going to talk about is the roles of operators in mercantile practice. We have various operators in mercantile practice, and a few of which we have the people known as the importers, we have exporters, we have freight forwarders, we have shipping lines and all that. So who is an importer? An importer, another name for an importer, we can also call him as a consignee. Is simply a person who buys goods in a foreign land and brings them to his or her own country. That person, we call him or her an importer. So he makes purchase internationally, either for personal use or for business purposes. Now, there are those people called exporters. In simple terms, these are people who take goods away from our country and sell them to a foreign land. In short, they seek for their clients, or their clients are in another foreign country. So they engage in international trade by selling what they have locally to the international client. For example, in Kenya, we have got exporters who majorly deals with tea, pyrethrum, etc. So when this tea is shipped outside Kenya, we call it as an export, and the parties who are involved in doing that, or the people who are doing that, or whoever party who is selling that, we call him or her an exporter. And again, another terminology which is used in the place of exporter, we can also use a consignor. So these are very, very important people in the international trade. Now, when you leave that aside, we also want to find out the differences between carriers and freight forwarders. Who is a carrier and who is a freight forwarder? So we'll find this definition of who a carrier is international as defined in international conventions. It says that global sea cargo transportation is governed by international conventions. We know that we have those rules like the Hague Rules, the Hamburg Rules, such kind of rules. They're called the international conventions. So global sea cargo transportation is majorly being controlled by these international conventions. So the first convention, which was signed in the international scale related to the international sea transportation, is keenly known as the Hague Rules. It's known as the Hague Rules. So the full name of this convention is International Convention for the Unification of Certain Rules of Law relating to the BL, that is the Bill of Lading, and the Protocol of Signature. So these are the first rules which were enacted, and the countries which signed to it became members of that particular convention. So they were drafted in Brussels. This is found in Belgium on 25th August 1924. And it defines the carrier as follows. That is the way in which it defines the carrier. That a carrier includes the owner or the charterer who enters into a contract of carriage with the shipper. So a carrier here, according to this definition, it is said that is either the owner of that carrying means, maybe a vessel, or a charterer who enters into a contract of carriage with the shipper. Now, a charterer here, a charterer is simply a person who hires a vessel. A person who hires a vessel, we call that person as a charterer. Remember, we charter vessels, we charter aircraft, we don't hire them. Okay, so whoever take it for temporary usage, we call that person as a charterer. So here we define a carrier as that person, that owner, or that charterer who is a temporary owner and enters a contract of carriage with the shipper. So the definition of a carrier is very straightforward in Hague Rules. And in order to be named as a carrier under the Hague Rules, you have to be the ship owner. So you see, these are the conditions. If I want to call you as you are the carrier, then you must be a ship owner, or at least the charterer. Okay, the most of which you can be termed as a carrier if you are a charterer, or you are required to own a particular vessel, and you have to enter into a contract of carriage with the shipper. And when I talk about the shipper here, I think you know whom I'm talking to. A shipper is the exporter. A shipper is the consigner. Okay, so Hague Rules were amended back again in 1979, and new amended rules were now called the Hague Rules. And the definition of the carrier stayed unchanged in the Hague Rules as it was in the Hague Rules, which means that it still remained the way it was defined in the Hague Rules. So the definition was never altered, though some rules were altered or changed, were slightly changed in Hague Rules as opposed to the way they were in Hague Rules, because they were found that these Hague Rules mostly they were favoring the carriers, that is the ship owners, as opposed to the shippers, that is the exporters. Okay, so some amendments were done so that also the shippers, they feel that these laws also gives them an advantage, not that they only give advantage to the carriers. So that amended rules came in 1979, and it was called Hague Rules. So when somebody hears someone talk about the Hague Rules, simply know that these are amended Hague Rules. So the second convention signed in international scale related to the international sea transportation is known as the Hamburg Rules. So another convention was signed after the Hague Rules. Remember, Hague is just an amendment of the Hague Rules. So another convention was signed again, and this was called the Hamburg Rules. So the definition of the carrier has been changed significantly with the Hamburg Rules. Now, the Hamburg Rules, they slightly changed the definition of the carrier. Remember, in the Hague Rules, it was defined as it include the owner or the charterer who enters into the contract of carriage with the shipper. But this was slightly changed with the Hamburg Rules. Now, the Hamburg Rules were making the distinction between the carrier and actual carrier. So they were trying to make it that there is a difference between a carrier and an actual carrier. So according to them, they say that according to the Hamburg Rules, you do not need to own a vessel in order for you to be defined as a carrier. Okay, so they are making it that for one to be called a carrier, you don't need to own a vessel. You can charter it, okay, or you can sublet it. Okay, so actually any person or entity who signs the contract of carriage with the shipper is accepted as a carrier under the Hamburg Rules. So Hamburg Rules makes it simple that if, for example, you have a cargo which you want to be shipped, and I approach you, tell you, oh, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, I can help you ship these cargoes to the destination where you want them to be. And you also accept my request, and we signed papers in relation to that. I become the carrier, whether I own a vessel or I don't own a vessel. That is what Hamburg Rules says. So the party who makes the sea transportation with its own or chartered vessel is defined as an actual carrier under the Hamburg Rules. So Hamburg Rules is now clarifying the whom do we termed as an actual carrier. So it says that An actual carrier is that person who makes the transportation with its own vessel, if I own my vessel, or a chartered vessel that is defined as an actual carrier under the Hamburg Rules. Okay, hope I'm clear. Now, so there are a little bit, as you can see down here, the way they have been split, the way the two has been split here. Carrier means any person by whom or in whose name a contract of carriage of good has by sea has been concluded with the shipper. So it makes that a carrier any person by whom or in whose name a contract of carriage of goods by sea has been concluded with the shipper. So in this case, remember what I mean here. A carrier here can be just another third party. It can be a freight forwarder who comes to you that, oh, Mr. So-and-so, I can help you ship these cargoes. A freight forwarder doesn't own a ship. He doesn't charter a ship. But after that now, he goes and approach a shipping line and tells them that I have a consignment here which I want to ship. So in this case now, if the freight forwarder here becomes the carrier, and now the shipping line, which is going to carry this your consignment to the final destination, becomes the actual carrier. So the means any person to whom the performance of the carriage of the goods or of part of the carriage has been entrusted by the carrier, and includes other persons to whom such performance has been entrusted. So that is the slightest how the Hamburg Rule was making. So Hamburg Rules was trying to make a distinction. Yes, we have that. Yes, we say that a carrier can be a person owning a vessel or a person who charters a vessel, but it was saying that no, not necessarily that. It can be even a person who approaches you that it can ship for you your cargoes, and you agree in paperwork. That person becomes a carrier. Okay. Now, differences between a freight forwarder and a carrier. Who is a freight forwarder? They are carriers as defined in Hamburg Rules. They do not need to own any vessel. Understand that? So these people do not need to own any vessel. They sign the contract of carriage with the shipper, and they find actual carrier to perform the transportation. So freight forwarders are known as contractual carriers. Okay, so they are carriers under contract, contractual carriers in some occasions. So which means that for them, they do not own vessel, neither do they charter vessel, but they're just like brokers. They approach you and say, okay, leave your consignment in my hands. They are going to reach your desired destination. So after you have done the paperwork, they go and approach a carrier or a charterer, and they make your consignment to be shipped. So carriers are performing actual carrier duties as described in Hamburg Rules. They transport goods from port of loading to port of discharge under their own or chartered vessels. Okay. Now we have another area here. These are called the third-party logistics and freight forwarding. So we need to understand the difference between the third parties, that's the 3PL, providers and freight forwarders. What these? Freight forwarders, they move freight from one destination to another via road, rail, air, or ocean. Third-party logistic logistic companies may perform freight forwarding services simply by providing their common services, moving, storing, and processing of inventory. So remember, the slightest difference here is that the freight forwarders, they move the freight from position A or point A to point B, either via road, via rail, via air, or ocean. But the so-called the 3PL, they perform freight forwarding services simply by providing their common services, moving, storing, processing rented. So these people, they have their own warehouses. They also own some of these logistics transport means, which can help them in moving the cargoes from one point to another. So both services relieve a company of managing minutiae, that is a smaller portion of transportation. It's paperwork, changing of freight providers, adhering to the regulations for some, paying of duties, etc. So freight forwarders specialize in the moving of freight. They are experts in this part of the overall supply chain. So they're mostly specialists in the movement of freight from point A to point B, that is from the port of loading to the port of discharge, and even beyond to the importer's premises. So they are not always the transportation companies themselves, although they can be, but more often than not contract with various carriers. They do contract with the various carriers to ensure maximum option for their clients. So like we say that they can be carriers, which means that they take the cargo from you, then they go and look for these carriers to help them transport these cargoes to the final destination. They may choose to work both domestically and globally, therefore working with all modes of transport, or they may choose to specialize even further and only work with the domestic space or international space. So they can decide to expand their territories or their scope of work, either to go globally or just to remain within their own country. Now, the 3PL providers help move the cargo, as mentioned earlier, but then they add extra services, such as they can store these cargoes between the transport steps and processing shipments. Many clients ship their cargo from arrival to various warehouses or distribution centers, but the 3PL companies will make items from the transport vehicles and package it with an invoice by each client drop-off. So like a freight forwarder, 3PL providers also work with various authorities and carriers to process paperwork, waybills, invoices, as well as paying any fees on behalf of the client. So see this, the 3PLs and the freight forwarder, they're all more or less the same, but the difference here is that the 3PL, that's the third-party logistic providers, they also provide other additional services like storing, processing, packaging, and all that, which the freight forwarders do not. So this is where the distinction comes, but their work is more or less the same. So there is a need for both in the supply chain, and deciding which is the best is based on the company's needs. That is their budget, current orders, and the focus. And as with any other service provider, the company must first perform an internal analysis to see what is truly needed, and where possible, cost savings by outsourcing will come. Outsourcing here, when we talk about outsourcing, this is whereby a company is trying to look for another company outside, apart from itself, to give that service, then they pay it for that, okay? Yeah. And this is what majority of companies are now doing right now. You find that the companies, they outsource their services, whereby they don't want to employ people permanently or people to do that job directly, by which they will incur some other expenditures, like paying of them maybe these statutory deductions and all that. So if they don't want to do that, they go and look for another third-party company to go provide that service. Like in most cases, if you walk around, you'll find in the front of a bank there is these security guards. In companies, you have at their gates, you get the security guards. those people are not employed directly by the company which you work for, but they are hired, they are being outsourced. Okay, so the money is paid to their company and their company pays them. See that? So many clients may find that working with a freight forwarder partner who also provides a third-party logistic services is a beneficial way to manage transportation needs when working with an outside vendor. So knowing that the basic freight needs will be accomplished, but there is also the option to add services, create a value, added benefit. So that is, I think, now there you can differentiate who is a freight forwarder and who is a third-party logistic providers. So third-party logistic providers, they perform all more or less the same work with the with these freight forwarders, but only that they have what additional services which they offer. Now we have consolidators and the NVOCC, that is the non-vessel operating carriers. A consolidator, to consolidate, simply mean to bring different parts together. Okay, like in this case, consolidation in shipping mostly happens whereby we have shippers having different they have consignments which is not making a full container load, so we'll do what called consolidation, where in this case sorry, where in this case what happens there is that we look for various shippers who want to ship in the same direction, but their consignments are not making a full container load. So party A and party B and party C, maybe their consignments are brought together by these experts known as consolidators, shipping consolidators. Then they are put in the same container, okay, to make what called LCL. Now there are got terms and conditions under which consolidation is done. For consolidation to be done, it means that these cargoes, one, they must be compatible. What I mean there, that they do not affect the chemical composition of another cargo when they are just opposed together, which means if they are put together, their chemical composition will remain the same. That is point one. Two, they must be heading to the same port of destination. Okay, not that one is heading in port A, another one is heading in port B. No, you can't consolidate that. Consolidation is done if their port of loading and the port of discharge is the same. And another thing which must be done upon reaching the port of destination, the container is stripped, which means it is opened, and these cargoes are removed from the container. Those which cannot be kept in the open air will be taken under a warehouse or in a shed. Okay, then from there, their owners will carry them as loose cargoes to their final destinations. Containers for the containers, that's the LCL containers, do not go beyond the port of discharge, okay, or the port of clearance. So they remain there, because if three people are having their cargo inside the same container and they are heading to different directions, one can say that I'm the one whose place is near, so let's start with my place first. Or another one can say that I'm the one coming from farthest earth, so let's start with my place, then as we distribute backward. No. So to avoid that, if you know your consignment is an LCL and the cargoes have arrived, what happens? They'll be stripped, they're put separately, and you clear them there. And again, another thing you need to note with these consolidated cargoes is that they are normally covered with what we call a house bill of lading. Okay, they are covered by a house BL, which means here that the consolidators here, the consolidators will issue the owners with what called a house BL, while when they take them to the shipping line you issue them with what called a master bill of lading. So consolidators simply agents, export company, consortium, or brokers that provides a complex set of services to agro-food SMEs, These services are carried out by receiving orders from big foreign buyers, identifying local suppliers, consolidation, collection of many goods to be sent to the same market, and placing of products on the market. So the consolidators must, therefore, know all the issues related to both the organization and the destination market. So they must be knowledgeable, in short. Have the trust of foreign buyers in order to ensure stable relations, and have many contacts with the local SMEs to ask for supplies of goods. So if you've decided you're working as a consolidator, you must be somebody who is knowledgeable about the international trade. You must be somebody who has gained the trust of foreign buyers. Okay. Another thing, you must have contacts of these local SMEs, so that if you have these small traders who want to participate in the international trade, then you contact them. Hey, so and so, do you have something to be shipped? Yeah, I have this. Maybe I have this number of pallets. Yes, we can consolidate with another. So in order to enter a foreign market, the consolidators have to know the laws and regulations. That is a must. Rules and the culture of destination countries. So these are the conditions which a consolidator must know. And generally, major foreign buyers do not want to interact with a lot of SMEs, but are interested in a long-term relationship with a broker who is able to bring together many orders from across sections of SMEs, guarantee the quality of required goods, and take care of providing all documentations able to certify the quality of goods according to the market standards. So which means here, if you become a consolidator, you must always provide quality products to gain the trust of these foreign buyers. So this is a mandatory thing you must do. So the compliance with the agreement in time creates a positive relationship with the broker and consolidator, thus increasing the possibility that the buyer will contact consolidators when they need additional goods. So for example, if a broker has provided an example of pasta to a foreign buyer, that buyer may ask for other products from the same broker, such as salami. These are just example products. Therefore, in order to protect relations with the large buyers, consolidators have to guarantee quality of products. So this is a very important thing, by the way. International trade don't provide anything below the required quality standard, or else it will be returned. So support risk of transportation and replace goods that do not arrive intact at the destination. So in case the goods you shipped do not arrive in the required standard, you'll be in position to replace them. So the consolidators operate through web pages where buyers and sellers have to be registered. So they have their pages. So once collected the orders through the web consolidators, they send the requests to all SMEs registered as suppliers of food goods. Then they can use online procedures launching a purchase proposal to all the procedures signed, the producer signed on the web page, or use a direct call or local procedures, local producers negotiating directly for the price and quality of those goods. So they operate online through a website kind of. So once consolidators have purchased the goods, the moment they purchase the goods, they take care to ensure that the product reflects the standard demanded by the buyers by unifying the shipments in the same market, completing all the procedures, and paying all fees for entry into the foreign market. So they have that role to play. So the consolidated product are sent to one buyer or to several buyers in the same market. So goods collected from various producers are grouped in containers to be sent by air, sea, road to the destination. So we have got this one here. You can see this figure here. The figure clearly shows we have the sellers We have transporters and we have the buyers. So the sellers here, we have a small dimension. There is the lack of resources, limited information. So these sellers here, they're small sellers. Like yourself, maybe you're participating in a given product and you want to take it to, you want to start shipping internationally. So you may not have enough more resources maybe to fill a container. Then also here we have the transporters. We can have air transport, sea transport, the GAM here where we include both the land transport, that's the land transport, road, and the rail. Then we have buyers here. Rules of country, you must know this, the rules of the country of destination, consumers' preferences, and local culture. So you as a consolidator know the rules of their country, know what those consumers give high thumb, and also their culture. Don't not send to them something which is against their culture. Okay, like maybe you want to ship cow meat to India, and the Indians, they don't eat the cow meat, so you must know the culture. Or you want to export pork to Muslim countries, you see, it would be like an abuse to them. You see, so knowing the culture of a given society whom you are trading with is very, very vital. So we have for the producer 1, producer 2, producer 3. Their consignments are consolidated, and now once the consolidation is done, there is that import-export procedures, the knowledge, the resources, groupage, risk, cost, and all that. Then you choose either to use air, use sea, use land, all that. Okay. Then you can choose your market. Are you taking the market A1, market 2, market 3, and all that? Okay. Now, their roles in global supply chain, most consolidators do not have their own ships. Okay, most of them. Aircraft or other means of transport, and therefore they use companies to further consolidate and send their product. So they don't own these means of transport. So international shipping services by air, which are the most expensive, and those by sea, which are the cheapest. By the way, sea transport is cheap, air transport is expensive. I think that is common, Um, especially when there is a volume of goods sufficient to fill the entire load. Now, that is, consolidators have a vast network of relations with operators in air, maritime, and road transport to offer competitive transport cost and combine orders from various clients aimed to fill the loads. So consequently, consolidators international transport system are moving from an initial structure built on the vast network of local affiliates to a network structure built on large hubs. Okay, hubs, you know, that is a common point whereby things come from different directions and converge at that particular point, call them hubs. So the sea transport can be either full container load, that is FCL, or LCL. So the FCL concerns shipment with the full containers from to all destinations with the high levels of security, strict safety standards, and precise timely procedures. So these are normally sealed from the port of loading to the port of destinations, okay, and maybe to the shipper's premises, depending. So contracts with companies of major foreign ports allow consolidators to plan different services and departures every week at a competitive price. So in less than container load shipment are consolidated in the weekly loads from and to all destinations. So the consolidators offer customers the possibility to operate international shipment without the total filling of containers for sea transport to and from every country in the world. So their role is to help the SMEs, okay? Yeah, the SMEs who also want to participate in international trade. So the consolidators are there for them. We just bring what you have. We are going to put it together with what another person has. Then the two will be shipped as a whole, okay? So the network of agents located in every major international seaport guarantees the treatment of goods and the fast handling the practices relating to the shipment abroad. So all international shipment in containers are handled with efficiency, care, and speed. So road transports are generally structured as a FTL, that is a full truckload, or less than truckload. And the FTL concerns the full load of on a truck for a single customer. So FCLs normally they are for a single client. Okay, LCLs will normally combine multiples of customers' loads to be consolidated on multiple workloads. And the shipping of mixed loads is a service that uh, consolidates various small consignments to create a full load. And as I said, when you hear the term consolidators, know that these are people who deals with small shipments. So the model employ a network of warehouses where the partial loads are collected from different customers. And one of the most efficient forms of mixed loads is the hub and spoke network, where individual shipments are transported by regional warehouses to a central hub where the loads are sorted and groups. Okay, you know what a hub is, eh? For those of you who have bicycles, motorcycles, you know there's that central point which the spokes are combined are connected to the wheel. Now, in shipping, we have got those hub ports, the main ports, where ships from those small ports, what's called the coastwise shipping, they collect cargoes or containers from those regions, then they bring them to the main port from which the large ocean-going ships depart from. Okay. Now, consequently, consolidators are commercial figures relevant to sell products of SMEs or international market. Their success is based on their ability to manage information and communication technologies. Okay, so the success of these people is based on their ability to manage the ICT, supply chain, intermodal transport, and containerization to collect and process large orders of goods quickly in the global market, and also to consolidate various production lots from the multiple vendors and take all the risk to give them to buyers final market. So given the complexity of the services consolidators provide to SMEs, they can also offer important and relevant service that can affect the success of agro-food SMEs. So internationalization in high potential market. Now we have, so you've got an understanding of who consolidators are. As I mentioned, remember these people, their role is to bring small consignment of the SMEs providers or the small scale business people who want to participate in international trade. They combine their small shipments to make a full container load. Okay, and in this case, they are called LCLs. Now, let's talk about the NVOCC, non-vessel operating carrier. Now, an NVOC, these are people who do not own a vessel, but they contract carriage in their own name. Okay? So, in simple terms, I'm just trying to simplify what an NVOC means. These people, they don't own vessels, but they contract the carriage. If you have your cargo you want to ship, they will help you ship it as if they are the people who owns that particular vessel, but they don't own it. They're just like the brokers. So a shipper with a small cargo or a less than container load can tap into these savings by booking through a logistic intermediary or a middleman. So these NVOC, as they are known, do not own or operate ships. Instead, they book space on ships and sell it to small quantities, consolidating freight for transport in standard containers. So these people, the NVOCs, they don't own ships, but what they do they go to the shipping line. They tell them, okay, please, please authorize a space for 5,000 containers. So they are sold a space for 5,000 containers by the shipping line. Then they tell them that this, we are going to bring containers for this space. So once they have been given that, they go out now to look for clients who are going to give them the containers which they want to ship there. Okay, so in a NVOC, the contract of sea carriage of goods is between the NVOC provider and the shipping line. And in this case now, you find that for the shipper, the contract is between you and the NVOC. So the shipping line gives an NVOC provider a master BL, while an NVOC provider gives a shipper what's called a house bill of lading. So an NVOC are a form of freight forwarders taking bookings for LCLs and combining to make a full container load that will be accepted for shipment under one bill of lading. So typically, NVOCs, in addition to customary services provided by freight forwarders, will also offer financial liability for goods due to loss or damage during the transport. Okay, yeah. So up to there, we want to end our lesson there, and I believe that you have learned something today. Parties taking part in the mercantile practice, we have the so-called the importers, we have those called the exporters, we have the freight forwarders, we have the consolidators, we have the NVOCC. You need to know them with their roles which they play. Okay, so up to next time, I believe that you have learned something today, and I urge you to, if you have any question, use the comment section to make a comment or to write that your question so that I can address it in our next class. Up to next time, I love you all. Stay safe and enjoy your afternoon. Good day.